Welcome to
Universitas Andalas is a state university established on September 13, 1956. The main campus is located in Padang, the second in Payakumbuh, and the third in Dharmasraya. Since August 31st, 2021, Universitas Andalas becoming the legal entity state university. The vision of Universitas Andalas is to be an outstanding and dignified university with 4 missions and a long-term strategy for 20 years. Universitas Andalas is accredited superior by the National Accreditation Board and has been in the first cluster along with 15 universities based on academic staff research performances. 15 study programs have been internationally accredited or certified by ABET, IABEE, FIBAA, ABSD 21, and AUNQA. The university supports study programs to meet international quality standards. Study programs that meet the requirements are facilitated to be assessed by the international accreditation boards, such as the Royal Society of Chemistry, the Foundation for International Business Administration Accreditation, and by the Accreditation Agency for Study Programs in Engineering, Informatics, Natural Sciences, and Mathematics. Universitas Andalas has made policies to ensure high-quality education, including the academic guidance, the ethical conduct, the guidance for students' internship, student exchange, and students' mobility programs. The university also have had a rector's degree on internal quality assurance system, the internal quality standards, and the Manual of Internal Quality Assurance System. The total number of students is more than 30,000 who come from various provinces in Indonesia and other countries. They were spread over 137 study programs at the vocational, undergraduate, professional, master or doctor levels. Many scholarships have been offered to the students. The teaching and learning process is held in common classroom with various capacity. The internet bandwidth is 165 Mbps, which can be accessed using LAN and Wi-Fi. Supporting facilities for students include dormitories, health clinic, university hospital, mosque, band center, student center, career and development center, cafeterias, and various sport facilities. There are 1,462 academic staff consisted of 161 professors, 380 associate professors, and 506 assistant professors. The academic staff also conduct researches and produce publication in reputable journals. The academic staff to student ratio is 1/19, and the supporting staff to student ratio is 1/17. To ensure the sustainability of the campus in the future, Universitas Andalas has had an integrated waste management system, an integrated water management system, and a micro hydropower plant inside the campus.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Dean of Faculty of Public Health, Andalas University, Mr. Devriman Jafri, PhD. The Honorable, the Vice Dean of Education, Student Affairs, Research and Community Services, Mrs. Ade Susana Eka Putri, PhD. The Honorable, the Vice Dean of Human Resources, Information Technology, Cooperation and Alumni Relations, Dr. Arya Gusti. The Honorable, the Head of Department and also the head of study programs at Public Health Faculty of Andalas University, the Honorable the lecturer and staff of Faculty of Public Health, Andalas University, and of course, I would like to greet our amazing keynote speaker today, Dr. Pia Rangeli G. Vital, PhD, DPAM. Good morning, Dr. Pai. I hope you're doing great. So today, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar of Faculty of Public Health in topic submitting a successful scientific paper with our amazing keynote, Dr. Pia Rangeli G. Vital, PhD, DPAM from University of Philippines, or we can call her Dr. Pai. So today, Dr. Pai will be delivering her presentations regarding submitting a successful scientific paper. So I hope it will be give us a lot of insight how to submit a successful scientific paper. But before we start the presentation, please allow me to read you a brief curriculum vitae of Dr. Pai. So please let me share you. Dr. Pia Rangeli G. Vital, PhD, DPAM, is currently a university researcher, a scientist. She is also a biological research and service laboratory head, and also an affiliate professor from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She has 20 years of experience in performing research and teaching in the field of environmental microbiology, and she already published numerous publications and paper presentations. She also had awarded by multi-science award, and Dr. Vital is currently visiting professor at Faculty of Public Health, Andalas University. So I think without further ado, I will let Dr. Vital to deliver her presentation. So I hope, are you ready, Dr. Pai? So this time is yours.
So, hi, thank you, Professor Risti, for your introduction. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me clearly. All right, so allow me just to share my screen. You can see it now, right? What is it? Yeah. It's okay. All right. So good morning again, everyone. I have to open also. There?
Okay.
Okay. Because I already have the other camera in the other account. Yeah, I see my face, two faces. All right. So good morning again, everyone. I am Kira Angela Vidal. Please call me Pai. I thank the Universitas Andalas and of course the Faculty of Public Health for welcoming me here. I am from the University of the Philippines in Diliman, and I am here this morning to share with you on how to submit a successful research paper. It was actually assigned to me by the Faculty of Public Health, so I hope that you'll be able to learn maybe one or two after the discussion. And I am dividing my discussion basically into two parts. First part would basically be an introduction of myself and my research. Why am I asked or tasked to discuss submitting a successful research paper? Basically, what is my credibility, or what am I doing to be discussing submitting a successful research paper? And then the second part, of course, is how to submit a research paper. It may not be successful at times, as there could be usually rejection. I'm very sure some of the faculty here or most of the faculty already submitted a research paper, and you will be feeling rejection from journals. You are not alone, as there are other professors also who gets rejected into submission of a research paper. Maybe it's the wrong journal, wrong topic, or wrong data, results, methods altogether. And then also for the students here, maybe if you're still starting your research or if you plan to submit a research paper, I hope that you can learn something also. So allow me to begin my a very short story on how or what is my journey on submitting, or how I came to submit research papers. I actually started as a lab student in the University of the Philippines in Diliman and the Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology in Korea. I will cut my story short. I will start with me being a lab student, a PhD lab student that started in 2011, the spring and the fall semesters. The IERC, or the International Environment Research Center or Institute, accepted me in Gwangju in South Korea for my PhD dissertation work. And from there, I had my mentors and, of course, my colleagues, my lab mates, who started to help me do my research and, of course, help me eventually to submit or prepare before submit a research paper. And then afterwards, and after years of research, lab work, dissertation, thesis work, there came the awards, the recognitions, paper submissions, professional organizations, as well as the media exposure. Those, the one that you see on the screen are just examples of my personal awards, recognitions. I have also a lot of organizations that helped me not only, of course, build professionally or scientifically, but be exposed also to other colleagues. And that brings me to my point of why we need to submit a research or a scientific paper, mainly because these professional organizations and media exposure and submission of papers would be really very important to help us disseminate the information, not only to the scientific community, but to the general community. And I understand that in the Faculty of Public Health, you have a community service. And I know also that if you have, or if you submit scientific paper, these are usually in English, and hopefully that we can also translate in Indonesian, or also in our country, we translate into Filipino our the language or the materials or these publications. And then just to share with you where I met Dr. Maki, or Professor Maki, from the Universitas Andalas. We met in the ASEAN Science and Technology Fellowship. I do not want to reveal his age, but he is my senior. He went ahead of me. He's, I think, batch 2018. I am batch 2019-2020. So this is the ASEAN Science and Technology Fellowship is under the ASEAN Foundation and the USAID, which happened to be in Jakarta, Indonesia. So this fellowship is a sort of a postdoc fellowship, but it's basically formulating science-based policies depending on the expertise. So in my case, it is microbiology, and this linked us. The scientists were linked to the policymakers, and of course to the ASEAN body, such as the one that you see there, COSTI. It's the Committee on Science and Technology, where we were able to meet different people. So there, I just would like also to share with you yesterday during the faculty meeting, I already shared this to the Faculty of Public Health, but for of course the general public, I want to share with you where I came from. I'm from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, on the is it left? Kiri, I learned something yesterday. Kiri, left side of the screen is a facade of our administration building. There's a fountain that would be turned on all throughout the day. And then the one on the center of the screen, we call him as the Oblation. He is the symbol of our university. University of the Philippines, Diliman is a flagship campus, and Oblation is a sort of a symbol of a freedom of academic interest, expression, and communication. And on kanan, or the right side of the screen, are the sunflowers that bloom, that signal graduation. Just let me know if my voice is too soft, or if it's too fast. Just raise your hand, or just anything. Or if you need a translation, I believe Professor Owl is here to help us translate anything. And below is our institute, the Natural Sciences Research Institute. I hope one or more of you would be visiting also the Philippines, and I'm really very thankful that I am here. I really feel very welcomed, and as I mentioned earlier to Professor Risti, I feel comfortable going to the university, and thank you so much. All right, so I am basically particularly interested in environmental microbiology and why the public health, because it has ecological, economic, as well as health impacts. So all of those, we study the microorganisms from the environment. We get them from either extreme and the natural environment. So the natural environments would have air, water, or soil, and even the outer space for the extreme environments. We have the NASA, who would study space microbiology. And we have also the hot springs, hydrothermal vents, and the polar region. So what is good with the Faculty of Public Health is that we study the microorganisms in the lab. We have the data, and the public health can help us how to, of course, interpret and the significance of this data that we collect in the lab. As I would joke around, my reason for having environmental microbiology as my interest is that we go out to the field, we get the samples. There's a reason to go out to the field and then again go back to the lab. But seriously, I just would like to share with you my lab right now. So Professor Risti already introduced me. I guess she also showed my very brief CV, so I will not be repeating that. But one of my positions, I have a lot of positions aside from being mother, of course, to my 4-year-old daughter. So I also am currently the head of the Biological Research and Services Laboratory of the Natural Sciences Research Institute in UP Diliman. The picture is sort of an old picture. We are now at 30. I am also surprised last month when we had our lab picture, we have around 20 researchers and staff, around more than 10 students, and we're keeping up. If you need, or if you like you need advice on in the field of biology, of course, or microbiology, you can contact us. We have our website and the Facebook page for our social media sites. So I would like to share with you that this lab has different facilities. We also, of course, conduct researches, workshops, and of course, technical services. Those are just pictures or examples of pictures of what we do in the lab. So you can, this is just an online visit of the lab or what we do. So allow me first to discuss my researches. I have briefly discussed this yesterday during the faculty meeting, but why am I discussing this? As I have mentioned earlier, this first part is about sharing with you the research and the papers that we have recently published, mainly because I want to share with you how we have published, and hopefully for the second part is to achieve the target of how to really submit a research paper into a journal successfully. So I divided, like you can see it on the screen. There's a guide, like it is marked with a pink border that would signify a different topic. So I will start with microalgae. This is under the field of phycology. My first love really is the field of phycology. It's different from psychology because we are studying algae. I heard yesterday that algae is alga. Is it right in Indonesian? Alga. Yes, so that's alga. So we are trying to detect for this publication, detecting the potential harmful algal bloom causing microalgae from freshwater prawn farms in Central Luzon, Philippines for bloom monitoring and prediction. This is of course for food safety and health of the people around the freshwater prawn farms. We studied the different cyanobacteria in the green algae in this paper, and I would like to give credit to my graduate student on the picture on the screen, who is now a PhD student in Canada. So we were able to publish this paper in Environment Development Sustainability. One of the important factors in considering a journal to submit your paper is that it should be indexed, scientifically indexed. So in our case, in our university, indexing will be accepted when it is indexed in Scopus or WOS, or the WOS, particularly ISI, SCI, or SCIE. I'm not sure in your university would it be the same. Like it's also Scopus or WOS. Thomson Reuters. Yes. Oh, there is something also for Indonesian. In our case, in the Philippines, we also have local journals, but they only accept international indexing, such as the Scopus and the Thomson Reuters or the WOS. I think that's very important decision in submit your paper in the journal. So aside from that, we continued since we are on, we detected harmful algal blooms and we wanted to know if these harmful algal blooms have, aside from health and ecological significance, would also give us economic importance. So we continued for the interaction between microalgae and Phytospheric bacterium for potential biodiesel application. So actually, in the lecture yesterday, we had critical thinking. This is part of critical thinking because once we were given a topic, the data and the results, and from there we worked on and we looked at what could be the answer to the question that we have, like how can we eradicate harmful algal bloom. So we can just collect them and give another reason for using them, such as potential biofuel application, including biodiesel, bioethanol. So we tried everything, like we used the algae for isolation. We also tried mutagen application. We tried phycospheric application. We tried also the different nutrition starvation. Like applying different types of nutrients to the algae. And on the lower right side of the screen, you can see my graduate student who is now in Germany, the Max Planck Institute, doing her PhD work. We were also able to publish this work in another Scopus indexed journal. So another topic of interest that we are also doing in the lab is about on fresh produce in agricultural sources. And this is actually part of my PhD and postdoc before. And we were also able to publish this in another journal. So it's basically microbiological quality of fresh produce from open air markets and supermarkets in the Philippines. I understand yesterday from our discussion from Professor Rima that she wanted to do microbiological assessment in street foods. I think it would be the same procedures or same methods also the one that we did here. But for this one, the clue to publishing this article is how comprehensive the study is, and of course the number and the type of bacteria and viruses or the microorganisms that are being analyzed. For example, we analyzed Escherichia coli, though we know of course that not all E. coli are pathogenic, only like the EHEC, the EPIC, ETEC, ESTEC, etc. And then, of course, Salmonella, a single presence of Salmonella would already be giving us pathogenicity or pathogenic food samples. And we're also able to analyze viruses. I know you have been hearing this for the past years. during the pandemic, but there is what we call as bacterial viruses, and we studied also somatic viruses. We did not stop there, as we understand that there is, for example, consumption of contaminated vegetables or produce will lead to outbreaks due to pathogenic organisms, such as, for example, the E. coli O157H7. And I understand we have the same problem in almost all Southeast Asian countries, because as you can see, developing countries, according to the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Organization, there would be around more than 2 million cases per year. This is, I guess, increasing with in 2023 data. And let us not worry, because even in developed countries, there are also cases of outbreaks in the food and waterborne diarrhea. And just last Monday, we were being asked what are the recent cases. Like in the southern part of the Philippines, there were around 300 cases just last year of foodborne contamination, with around 7 deaths. So that's the significance of studying this produce, and that's what you can do to find the significance. If there's no outbreak, like how can we prevent, or how can we detect this microorganisms? Those would be the clues for you to be able to successfully submit a journal for publication. And then we did not stop there. Again, going back to the critical thinking topic yesterday, since we got these microorganisms at hand, is it really dangerous, or are they just there? We cannot see them. Is it okay? So we thought of looking at the antimicrobial resistance. We would call this as a silent pandemic, though of course we do not see them, but these microorganisms could be resistant to antibiotics. Some of them are multi-drug resistant. So for example, you ate these contaminated produce or products, and for example, you would be taking antibiotics. Those antibiotics will no longer be effective to these or against these microorganisms. We have obtained either antimicrobial resistance in E. coli and in Salmonella. But don't worry, because in the Philippines, we have agencies or the ministries who look at this food safety, particularly agricultural food safety. We have the Food and Drug Administration. We have the Department of Agriculture, or I think here it's Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Health. Is it right? So those would be the standards for looking at the food safety. And of course, internationally, we have the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization. And actually in the Philippines, I happen to be a part of the technical working group of developing the Philippine National Standards on Microbiological Criteria for Agricultural Food Safety. And I work as a vice chair. So even though, of course, this data, these publications, the submitted papers, and the accepted papers are very important in proving to our government the need for the Philippine national standards and national standards and the criteria. And I believe it will be the same for you here also, particularly in Batam. So, of course, we did not stop in the markets, like in the vendors for the contamination, and we went back to the sources, call it as microbial source tracking, or going back to the agricultural sources. We have, of course, the pre-harvest, during harvest, and of course, post-harvest. And one of the sources would be irrigation water, as well as soil, and even the fecal materials. You see, what is fecal material in Indonesia? Species. Waste material, feces also, yeah, feces, or the waste material, because I'm not sure if you have it also, but I believe you have beaches and natural resources. There would be animals roaming around, and this would be causing the contamination, and even humans sometimes, even that would happen also in the Philippines, and there would be a lot of contamination from there. And we have observed that it's really the contamination coming from the pre and during harvest, the one that they sell on the markets would have the lowest contamination. And so we were also able to publish that. The one that you see on the screen on the left side is my student who previously graduated, finished her PhD in Japan. And the one on the right successfully finished also her master's degree. And they are both, of course, published. And then again, we did not stop there because if you have an idea of how to do antimicrobial resistance or multi-drug resistance, it is very tedious culturally. Culturally speaking, we have the disc diffusion assay or the antibiotic disc assay. You have several days to do it. So we were trying to help the health practitioners identify the antibiotic and multi-drug resistance in terms of molecular analysis. So we tried to detect it using the class 1 and 2 integrons. So sharing with you that this is a good journal. It is published in Taylor and Francis. And this is a journal of environmental science and health, part B. As you can notice, it is part B as there are parts A and as well as C. This is indexed in WOS, SEI, SEIE, as well as Scopus. So my tip earlier is, of course, to check first if these are indexed in international journals. So my student on the right side of the screen already graduated, finished her master's degree, and is now taking a PhD degree. So I know most of you or some of you here are graduate students also. And then, of course, we started, or my curiosity started if the contamination in the Philippines is at par with other Southeast Asian countries. So we went as far as Vietnam, and we were actually talking about another type of mango in Vietnam last night. But I believe there is also contamination in Vietnam, and we already made use of the real-time PCR, or the molecular biology technique, RT-PCR. I know you have heard of this so many times because some of you or most of us have been tested against COVID-19 using RT-PCR. So as early as 2017, we were already using this technique, and we really wanted to show actually at the time the policymakers that we can use this in detection. Eventually and finally, during the pandemic, it was realized that this detection method can really be used in identifying viruses and microorganisms. So let us not stop in trying to do research, communicate research through this publication that we are doing and going to do. Because in one way or another, if we are not heard at that time, there's what we call that, in time, it will be realized, and it will be used not only by you, not only by the scientific community, but look at now, it's a general community using this real-time PCR. And then I didn't stop identifying contamination in the Philippines, in Vietnam, but we also went through the different Southeast Asian countries because my curiosity is if there is in the Philippines, would there be, or are we at par? How are we compared against or with other Southeast Asian countries? We also have samples with we found samples also in Indonesia. I think a part here, I forgot the particular area, but as we can see, there were also contamination similar with the rest of the Southeast Asian countries. So this is also another good journal for those of you looking to publish. It's not only microbiology, but also health-related and nutrition-related research. It's World Journal of Microbiology and Biotechnology. This is also indexed in WOS, SEI, SEIE, and the Thomson Reuters, and the Scopus, as well as SCImago. All right, so since you have those data, we went back to the local community. I understand you have your community services. I think that's very important, because when you go back to the community, you can really see what is the problem and what could be done. So what we did, we went back to our local communities. We investigated, or we went to a lot of them, and we saw that there are phylogenetic grouping and carbapenemase production. You are particular with carbapenem, right? In public health, or EPI, that's antibiotic. And this is also from Escherichia from agricultural samples. And my student there already finished or graduated from his master's degree. All right, you're also again able to publish this one. Actually another tip is that if you're just finished with your research, for example, you finish it within the year or 2 years, don't worry if you are not able to finish it at the end of the year. as long as the data are still valid. So if you have like a data for 2 or 3 years, you can still publish it right after, as long as, of course, you have your results, your data, the dates. You let us know accurately what are the seasons, what are the samples, the sampling sites. I am sharing this with you because this paper has just been published last year, but my student graduated last, I think, 2019 or 2020. So that the data are still valid, simply because we have a good record of the data. So that's also very important. And my advice to students, and not only advice, but I require them, especially for thesis students, to have the hard copy. They have a notebook, they have a record notebook, so that all the from related literature to the methods to the results to data analysis, it is there, plus the soft copy. I understand now we are into AI generation, the Gen Z generation, but it is very important to back up. Like if you have your soft copies, very important that you also have your hard copies of your data. It would always happen. Like one day that the student would knock to my office and would say, my data are all erased in my hard drive. So it's very difficult because you have to repeat your experiments again, instead of submitting already or preparing already for your research paper. Right. So since you have observed those contamination, we did not stop there. Again, critical thinking. If you are curious, you have contamination, what will you do? Of course, we have observed that there are organisms that could also block or interfere with the contamination. If we have MDR or antibiotic resistance, could look at other organisms such as fungi. These are also microorganisms, and we call this as endophytes. They are fungi living with plants, and they have good prognosis or good diagnosis. They would be able to eliminate microorganisms which are even antibiotic or multi-drug resistance. So we try to optimize organic acid production by filamentous fungal endophytes through probabilistic modeling. I know for some of you here into AI, you are also doing probabilistic modeling, probably. And we have also already published this study around two. My student there is already or already finished his master's degree and is now looking at going into PhD degree and also doing research. For this submissions, we also look at the international journals. And another tip is that it is not bad to look at the same journal. So for example, your publication is already accepted in the same journal as long as it also has the same scope. So you can also submit it to the same journal. So that is what we did for this. But basically, since this is more of health related, so we looked at the paper submitting in both an environment and health related journal. So we also studied plant natural products, and in the lab, there are other experts doing traditional medicine as alternative source of antimicrobial and anti-genotoxic agents. So I know yesterday from Professor Risti, I heard that you have your plants also. You look at the natural resources, antibiotic activities. We also look at anti-genotoxic activities, and we also have publications for the antimicrobial resistance. There was a lot of great need and interest in this topic before, because in the Philippines, we have a lot of natural resources and we could look into them, or we could investigate into them. I think same here in Padang, that you also have those natural resources and could give this as a solution for the AMR or the MDR. And then also we have probiotics. This is in collaboration with a Korean professor. We have a memorandum of understanding with them, and hopefully, as discussed yesterday, we could also have another MOU or MOA with the Universitas Andalas, so we can have officially do collaboration. So we were able to commercially, we were able to investigate commercially available probiotics both in the Philippines and in South Korea. We have already published this one. We are preparing another local publication, and the student on the right side of the screen already finished her master's degree, and she is already taking up her PhD degree also in Korea. So I'm really happy I'm really proud of my students and my research assistants of where they are right now. Some of them, again, in the Philippines, and some of them doing PhD already abroad, simply because they were able to publish their thesis. So again, going back to submitting a successful research paper. And then aside from that, of course, if you have this contamination, etc., what would be the fast, accurate, and cost-efficient method to detect this contamination? And one of them, we are developing a detection kit on Vibrio parahemolyticus. I understand you have a lot of seafoods here. So I see you have, we sell fish. I think the other day we were able to pass by vendors selling fish. So I'm very sure you also have Vibrio, and we have this in Laguna de Bay in the Philippines. The one that you see on the screen would be an example of the tubes that this could be used by fish farmers. And mainly because we do not want, of course, these fish farmers cannot go into our laboratories. But what we can do is we can bring this to the community, and they can use this just like the COVID-19 antigen test kit. I know you're familiar with that. And the one on the right side of the screen is my student who did part of this work and is already an MD PhD student. I know you have a medical school here in University of Angeles in the Philippines. We have a program that what we call as MD PhD. You also have it here, right? It's MD medical doctor, yes, and the PhD degrees. Hopefully, public health students, institution students, you can be MD PhD, you can be a doctor of medicine at the same time, a doctoral researcher, you can do that. All right, so and aside from that, we also, going back to the environmental microbiology topic, we have airborne germs or the air. So we were also able to look at different bioaerosols, and this is funded by a private company. I know you have heard of this. It's Procter and Gamble Singapore, P&G. You have products from P&G, right? I'm not promoting that one, but this is promoted by this one, mainly because they wanted to see if their products are really effective. So we were able to see this contamination, and of course the products are effective against this bioaerosols. You were also able to publish this in another international journal, another good journal. I'm sharing this with you. It is Archives of Environmental and Occupational Health. I think this is very important journal in your field because it is it has environment and the health impact. So you have to package your paper in such a way that you don't only collect data, but of course you have your environment and health applications or significance of the paper or the data that you have. So any questions so far or any translations that you need? Okay.
Baik, mungkin Bapak Ibu, mungkin untuk could you please mute yourself for a while? Dr. Faiger, thank you. Yes. Okay. Bapak Ibu, mungkin ini baru setengah dari materi Dr. Pai. Mungkin ada Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya. Silahkan bisa dituliskan di kolom chat. Boleh dalam bahasa Indonesia, nanti saya akan membantu untuk mentranslate pertanyaan Bapak Ibu kepada Dr. Pai. Jadi mungkin saya bisa sedikit mengulas ya Bapak Ibu. Sebetulnya ini belum selesai, tetapi Dr. Pai sudah menyajikan ya Bapak Ibu banyak sekali penelitian beliau, publikasi beliau yang mungkin bisa menjadi ide untuk penelitian kita selanjutnya atau mungkin publikasi kita selanjutnya. Tadi mungkin juga yang saya dapat ambil juga Dr. Pai menyampaikan bahwa data-data kita meskipun sudah berusia 2 atau 3 tahun tapi asalkan itu valid, itu juga ternyata bisa Bapak Ibu untuk menjadi bahan untuk publikasi terbaru dari Bapak Ibu. Mungkin apakah ada yang ingin ditanyakan Bapak Ibu?
Izin bertanya.
Silahkan Bu Sis.
Ya, bisa didengar suara saya?
Jelas Bu Sis, jelas. Atau Bu Sis mau dituliskan di kolom chat Bu Sis
Enggak,
mungkin
ini
atau gimana mungkin?
lampu lagi mati. Saya enggak bisa
Oke, baik Bu Sis, silakan Bu Sis.
sedikit nanti mohon di bahasa Inggris kan ya. Jadi tadi ada yang berkaitan dengan resisten obat ya, resisten dari patogenik ya, dari molekul. Nah, ini yang ingin saya tanyakan, bagaimana caranya meneliti yang lebih mudah ya untuk penggunaan suatu antibiotik misalnya yang resisten tidak digunakan oleh responden secara teratur dan itu membutuhkan waktu lama gitu. Misalnya TB itu resisten obat sangat tinggi. Kemudian memantaunya dalam waktu 6 bulan. Ada nggak strategi untuk mengambil data dari 6 bulan tersebut sehingga kita bisa melihat responden itu sudah memenuhi keteraturan minum obat atau tidak? Bisa ditangkap, Risti?
Bisa Bu Sis, terima kasih.
Oke.
Saya
Baik.
sampaikan dulu ya Bu Sis. So, the one who asked question is Mrs. Trisi Swati. She's one of our lecturer, and I just suggest her to write her questions in the comment section. But she said that there was a blackout at her home, so that's why she couldn't write it on the comment section. So that's why she just deliver it to directly. So Mrs. Trisi Swati just asked regarding the pathogenic resistancy. So do you have any idea or perhaps tips how to analyze resistance on antibiotic for a long-term patient such as TB patients? How do we analyze their compliance in taking their medication?
I can unmute now. Thank you, Professor, for your question. All right. So in our laboratory, we do the DTA or the disc diffusion assay, wherein we have the antimicrobial disc, like the zone of inhibition to be measured. I understand this is very tedious because we have to grow Mycobacterium tuberculosis on the plate, and that would take days after growing them. But it's the best way to see or to monitor antimicrobial resistance. That's the first one because it's a culture method. It is suggested, of course, at least every week or every 2 weeks to see if there's no longer antimicrobial resistance. But I think that would not happen, or that would not be, the AMR would not be removed in just 2 weeks. So if it's really very tedious, a DDA could be done every month. I think that's easier. But if you have the facilities, the second method would be better. It's a molecular method, the one that I showed earlier. It's very easy. You can just collect a sample. You can see if there's a gene available, either the class 1 and 2 integrons or a particular antimicrobial resistant gene in TB, and you can poof, after 3 hours you can see the gene. If you have like if it's not RT-PCR, it's okay. If it's PCR and gel electrophoresis, is also convenient to be used. I hope it helps.
Bu Sis, apakah bisa ditangkap Bu Sis? Atau mungkin Risti boleh bantu untuk translate ya Bu Sis?
Ya, boleh.
Oke, jadi tadi disarankan memang kita pakai metode DTA Bu Sis. Jadi yang pakai kita ngukur dari disknya nanti bagaimana dikultur dulu Bu Sis untuk mikrobiologinya. Tapi itu untuk idealnya kan 1-2 minggu Bu Sis. Cuman itu sepertinya juga agak terlalu sulit. Jadi bisa kalau misalkan pakai metode DTA itu bisa 1 bulan sekali. Nah, cuman kalau untuk yang lebih simpel lagi sebetulnya bisa menggunakan pakai molecular method. Jadi yang udah berkaitan dengan molekular pakai sequencing gene itu bisa lebih cepat Bu Sis. Pakai PCR itu bisa 3 jam aja. Gitu Bu Sis. Ada lagi yang ingin ditanyakan?
Yang saya tidak tahu ya, itu pakai PCR mungkin ya pokoknya kalau misalnya di kultur kemudian dilihat nanti tumbuh apa enggak atau berkurang apa enggak bakterinya, di sana melihatnya itu butuh waktu lama. Yang ingin saya tanyakan tadi itu ada strategi yang lebih simpel begitu loh. Apakah artificial intelligence merupakan satu solution gitu?
Okay, baik. So she asked, are there any simpler procedures or perhaps any AI perhaps already?
I think the DPA one is the simplest one because that's the easiest. Our students can also do it in class. You just have the plate. You cultivate it with Mycobacterium, and then you can put the different antibiotic discs. If you don't have the commercially available antibiotic discs, you can just cut out the filter paper and you can put it on the disc. If you don't want to do that, you can use the broth dilution method. Instead of a plate, it's just a liquid. You will dispense antibiotic solution. If it clears, it means that it can work. If it doesn't clear, then it doesn't work. I think that's the easiest. It's a bit crude, but if you don't want to quantify, you just want to see qualitatively, you can do that. May I ask what is the method that is being done here?
Bu Sis, jadi
Ya.
mungkin kalau dari penyampaian Dr. Pai, mungkin memang untuk sementara metode yang paling bagus, yang paling simple tuh ya DTA tadi ya Bu ya. Memang kita masih butuh untuk di lab seperti itu. Nah cuman ini Dr. Pai juga menanyakan apakah Bu Sis sudah pernah melakukan penelitian serupa dan kira-kira menggunakan metode apa Bu Sis?
Penelitian yang pernah saya lakukan adalah ya chatbot ya, chatbot. Tetapi itu untuk virus ya, yang resistennya dalam 14 hari. Such as COVID is we can report about 2 weeks, but this is Mycobacterium tuberculosis 6 months. We must to see about resistance to 6 months. I want to know about your strategy. Maybe you can see a solution, yeah, to see about the resistance is maybe you can make artificial intelligence chatbot, GPS is maybe to see about this is resistant, and maybe we can we can see
Sis, mohon maaf.
ya. Gimana Risti?
Bu Sis, mohon maaf. Suaranya sedikit putus-putus. Apakah bisa diulang, Ibu? Karena kami di sini sedikit kurang jelas suara Bu Sis, Bu.
Wah ini karena pakai HP ya, agak susah saya. Yang bahasa Indonesia aja ya.
I actually understand. I understand the question because you wanted a method that would be easier to detect, right? So as I mentioned earlier, it would take a long time. So you're right, 2 to 6 months, and the medication would really need 6 months. Sometimes in the Philippines, it would take up to 1 year for the medication. And as far as I know, in the Philippines, the MDR is being monitored monthly, and it's really DDA or the broth dilution method that they use. So, but if you're just after looking at if the TB is still antibiotic resistance, I think all throughout it will not be losing the gene of the resistant gene. So if you are already if you already give a particular medicine to the patient which is effective already, you can already try that, but the antibiotic resistance gene would not be lost in just a few times or a few months. It will still be there. But I appreciate your idea of identifying again the AMR monthly. So I would suggest just really you can do it monthly or every 2 months because I think that the medicine would not be effective because the antibiotic resistant gene would still be there. So either the DDA or the broth dilution method. This is also under the WHO guidelines. I do not know any local guidelines of identifying, but that's just how we do it in the Philippines.
Okay, thank you Dr. Pai. Jadi Bu Sis, Mungkin yang dijelaskan Dr. Pak itu memang masih mungkin menyarankan DTA tadi ya Bu ya, karena memang itu metode yang digunakan di Philippines. Jadi Dr. Pak mungkin juga kurang familiar biasanya regulations atau metode apa yang digunakan di sini. Seperti itu Bu Sis. Nah, cuman ini di chat ada masukan dari Pak Ratno, Bu Sis. Jadi Pak Ratno menyampaikan untuk tes drug resistant TB sekarang bisa pakai TCM, jadi gene expert butuh waktu cuma 2 jam Bu Sis, dan itu sudah dipakai di semua rumah sakit pemerintah di Indonesia.
Oke, baik.
So, Dr. Pai, one of our lecturer just sent me a message on a direct chat. He said that in Indonesia we have an analysis called TCM, so it's a gene expert, and it only needs 2 hours to test the drug resistance for TB, and it already used in all government-based hospital in Indonesia. I think you can continue your presentation.
Okay. All right. It's the same. There's the fast detection here actually. So I already of course discussed all the papers that we have, and just to give acknowledgement, funding agencies, collaborators. I did not do it alone. There are of course researchers and students who helped us publish. So that's another tip, of course, in publication is you have of course, if you're a student, you should have a mentor. If you are already a professional, you should have your colleagues. If you are of course done with your PhD, you should have your funding agencies and other collaborators so that you can have good project to be able to submit a good paper. So let me go straight to the second part, which is how to publish a research paper. Of course, this is for the professors, you already know this one very well. I know most of you are published or you have your impact factor in Google Scholar or whatever index. I do not know what index you use here to identify your you also use H-index, right? Yes, it's the same in the Philippines. You have the H-index. You are developing a local index. We call it as a star index, but I'm not sure if it will be successful. We're still after the H-index, and you can, like, if you know the name or you know the affiliation, you can Google me or Google anyone you know, and you would know the H-index or the credibility of the person in terms of publication. So this is for the students basically because I heard yesterday, of course, that the first year and the second year students are about to start their thesis or research or community work or surveys. And then, of course, for the third year and fourth year or the graduate students, this could be a reiteration or a review of how to submit a paper. I actually curious, I am opening my chat box. How many of you here are able to publish more than one scientific paper in international peer-reviewed journal? If you can just raise your hand using the I don't know, you can do that, right?
Jadi Bapak Ibu, Dr. Pai bertanya, kira-kira adakah yang Bapak Ibu bisa mempublikasikan lebih
I
dari
see one.
Publikasi internasional? Apakah ada? Bapak Ibu bisa mengklik pada fitur partisipan dan di situ akan ada raise hand Bapak Ibu. Nah, itu bisa tolong diklik karena Dr. Pai penasaran seperti itu Bapak Ibu.
Oke.
Only one, okay.
Okay.
I think like more than one, but
more than one. Probably others are shy. I'm very sure you already published more than one paper in a scientific journal. But anyway, this would be the parts of the research paper. Of course, for the students, we have the different parts: the title, abstract, introduction, review of related literature, methods, results, discussion, acknowledgement, which I just have done. That's very important. Other journals would request for the conflict of interest and the contributions of the authors, and of course the references or the literature cited. What we do, of course, what I advise to my researchers and my students is that you don't do the title at first. So no title, no abstract, no summary, no conclusion at first. You go straight first to the review of related literature. You have your topic, you have your question, you are curious, you have a problem, either an outbreak, or you want to answer an intriguing question of the world, which is ethical, that you make sure it's ethical. It follows international standards and guidelines. You go directly to the review of related literature. Why? Because you want to know if your question has already been answered. If it's answered, how many studies? If it has been answered, by how many studies? What community? What area? Is it applied? Is it applicable to Southeast Asia or only to the other part of the world? So there, your topic could be not very unique, not very novel. Maybe others already did that, but you still want to answer a particular question wherein you see a loophole in a particular topic. So you start with a literature review. At this point, I ask my students to put the abstract, or at least the citation, in their record notebooks, and also a soft copy of the full paper if they're able to access it. You have publication or paper access in the university, you can, yes. So you can also keep a soft copy of the paper so that you can go back and read those papers. So after you have done your literature review, a very comprehensive review, and I will also be discussing a bit later about predatory journals. I understand I requested for only 30 minutes, but I am in an hour. It's okay? Okay, I can continue. All right, so I have a very short discussion on that, because what's very important is that when you choose your literature review, you choose credible sources, meaning that these journals or papers should also be indexed in international peer-reviewed journals. You cannot have, you cannot cite, like you watch the TV, you were able to watch on YouTube, or so many information now in Google. You cannot do that. For your scientific paper, it has to be peer-reviewed, or most or almost all should be in journals also, or could be books, but very limited. And then after that, you start to formulate. After formulating your question and your literature review, you can already identify what methods you will do. So for example, you will do culture method, identification, survey, what data analysis you want to use. Do you need other collaborators? Do you need an expert? What particular funds that you need? I think one of the important consideration is the funding agency also. Is a funding agency allowing you to do that? Is your project accepted for funding, etc.? So those would be your methods. And especially for the students here, if they're for both undergraduate and graduate students, if you already formulated your questions and your methods, you have to develop this with your mentor or thesis advisor. That is very important. In every step of the way, you have to consult your advisor, because your advisor will guide you throughout all the process from the start. If your question is really legit or legitimate, if it's not fake news, or if you can do that in your field, your advisor would teach you. And the one slide that I showed earlier during my early years, I really look up to my mentors to help me. And even until now, I finished my PhD already, and I am already I have a full-time position, but I still go back to my mentors and my advisors and ask them for advice. So just please don't be shy. Continue to communicate with them and ask them, as long as they have time, of course, for you, because they are mentoring other younger generations, and we are required to mentor under younger generations too. But your mentors would really help you do especially your methods. They have their expertise on that, and they can advise you also at the beginning that, oh, this could be publishable, this is not publishable, etc. Then afterwards, if you have funding, you have good methods already, or your methodology is already organized, you have your materials, or you have the people, you have your survey questionnaire, you can do your methods now. And of course, you will have your results. Your results could be analyzed by you or by a statistical expert, or of course, you're an expert, public health expert, an epi expert also would sometimes help us understand our data. So that is also very important. And the clue there is don't show your results just because you have your results. You have to involve your analysts or your data analyst experts from the beginning, because they might be able to advise you on what to do and to correct your methods to be able to analyze your data correctly. And then the discussion part is just, of course, how you would discuss your results, how it is at par with other studies, or how unique it is, or how contradicting it is with other studies. You might get results that, oh, this is we get a high AMR for this one, but for other previous studies, they don't get AMR. That's okay, because you have your data, you have a basis, you have an evidence, and make sure that you report anything, even if you have your negative data, especially for the students. I always get this. If you have negative data, 0, or like you don't expect that in your hypothesis, you still have to report those data regardless or no matter what they are. Okay, so as soon as you have everything, all of this, you can now go back to your introduction, the abstract, and you can have your conclusion. Then finally, you can have your title. You no longer have the working topic or title, but you can have your concrete or complete title. It's very important, of course, again, to have your references, because you do not want to have plagiarism issues. I know you have heard of that already, that you get the concepts or the statements of other people without giving credit to them. It is very important in scientific writing, especially in writing a research paper, that you don't plagiarize. So these journals, for those of you who raised hand earlier, who already submitted into a journal, they have apps or applications to check for plagiarism. Usually in our country, we use Turnitin. What would you? Same. Yes, Turnitin. So usually greater than 10% would already be considered as plagiarism work. So you have to be careful with that, because sometimes we just, of course, we want to copy exactly what was written because we do not want to have a mistake, but maybe you can restate or maybe just put it in a style, but just make sure to cite the authors who did the work. So again, aside from this from these parts, you have to sometimes declare the conflict of interest, if there's any conflict of interest among the authors, and of course the ethics. If you used human samples, for example, you had surveys where you usually have your questionnaires using surveys. In the Philippines now, we have strict guidelines on ethics, and sometimes there are journals who would not accept your papers unless you have ethics review. And then you have, of course, if you use animals or you mention animals in your paper, you need to have your IACUC review. I'm not sure what you use here in veterinarian. Yeah. In our case, we have scientists and the veterinarians working together. We call it an IACUC, Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. So that's it. It's very important that before you do your experiments, make sure that you pass all this review ethics guidelines, because you might have a problem during doing it, or if you are publishing already or submitting for publication, you will have a super big problem because it will not be accepted, at least not accepted. But even before submitting, the journal will not accept your submission. So, all right. So, of course, what is our motivation to publish? Of course, in the author's perspective, I would like to assume that our motivation to publish is dissemination or information dissemination. I put the career prospects at second, but I think, of course, for professors, faculty, researchers, and scientists, our main goal is, of course, career prospects. It is we are driven by the maxim of publish or perish. I don't know if it's the same for the university, but in our country, of course, especially young scientists or faculty should be able to publish in scientific journals. And of course, improved funding. If you have a lot of funds, or funding agencies would also require us, of course, to publish and have information dissemination. This is just not really, I don't know, but about ego, maybe other scientists, but let's not talk about that. Patent protection, of course, and others. Maybe you can also think of other reasons right now why you are submitting, or why you are considering of submitting a research paper. All right. So what are author publishing priorities, or why do we choose particular journals? I have shown you already the different papers that we have published, and I have shared with you what journals you can look at for publication. And these are just few reasons why we choose those journals. Of course, in terms of quality and speed, refereeing speed, sometimes we have, me personally, I have an experience like we submitted January last year, January 2022. We had a review like already middle of the year. Third quarter of the year, there's another review, and only until the last quarter of the year, the paper was submitted. They say we're still lucky because that's still fast. Sometimes it's more than a year, especially during the pandemic. And finally, in 2023, our paper was published online. So I think you can look at the history of the journal in terms of refereeing speed, the standard, and the journal reputation. Now, for students, you just don't choose your journal alone, but you have to choose this along with your faculty advisor or your thesis advisor, because you have to check again if it is internationally indexed. You just don't, there's so many predatory journals right now. I will be sharing a bit for the predatory journals in a while. So we have to look, of course, at the editorial board, the physical quality, and the publication services. So you can also look at if there's article processing charge, because sometimes journals would have APCs. Not all predatory journals, or not all journals which have APCs are predatory. Okay, and what are the key elements of publishing? This is for the students or those that do not have yet ideas on publishing. Of course, I have already mentioned it's very important for the ethical issues. So you have sometimes ethics review, the style, and the language. I'm not sure if before you submit, you have it checked by your language expert for the English, or you just directly submit it.
It depends on the
Depends on the authors and the journal. So that's also very important, because usually the publications are in English, and if you have local journal, it's very easy because you can just use your local language. And for our case in the Philippines, you usually required, of course, to publish in international journals. So the language should be in English. And then the structure of the paper. Are there questions? Okay, you look at the structure of the paper, particularly for the journals. You go to the instructions for authors page there, because different journals would have different instructions. So sometimes there's the font size Times New Roman 12, like that. Sometimes in other journals is Arial or double spaced, single spaced, etc. And then the components of the paper. Article submission and journal selection, that's very important, in the publisher's process for peer review. So sometimes there are 2 or 3 reviewers in a paper, and your 3 reviewers would all have comments, and you have to reply to all those comments. But don't worry, because if you are a student, of course, you will be helped by your advisor, who will be your corresponding author. So usually, I am not sure if it's also the case in this university. So of course, the senior author is a faculty advisor, and the student would be also part of the main author who did the thesis. But it is always your advisor who should be submitting the paper for you, and the other way. That's right.
And if the research is not required students, the student must be like.
Oh yes, that's correct. It's the first author, but the corresponding author, I mean the one who submits. Oh, really? Oh wow, yeah. Usually, I learned something new. In the Philippines, when the advisor should be the one submitting for the student, and it's usually the case. Of course, it's the advisor who funds the thesis. So you just have to, of course, discuss among yourselves in terms of the co-authorship. All right. So going into, I mentioned earlier that there are predatory journals that you have to watch for in submitting your research paper. So what are these predatory journals? I'm sure you have heard of this. Any translation of predatory?
We usually use like journal predator. Predatory in
Predator.
Indonesia is predator.
Predator. These are like in local language, like it's fake journals. They are not true journals. You cannot submit there. If you submit there, you are scammed. So your data would be get lost. You will be asked to pay. You will lose money, and you will lose your credibility. So I just want to share this with you as this is alarming because I have a colleague in the lab who's also a PhD, already a PhD. And then he talked to me like someone was inviting him to be a member of the editorial board. I was so happy for him. Like, okay, go. I said go. And then it's just so nice that he shared with me the link and the website. And we saw that it was predatory. It was so scary. You will already be part of the scam because you would be an accomplice of the predatory journal. So this is an intriguing and a controversial issue all throughout the world, not only for the younger generation, but even seniors could be scammed by this. So predatory journals are also known as fraudulent, deceptive, or pseudo journals based on the reference. And these are usually open access journals that publish articles online with little or no peer review, low academic standards, and little credibility. So why do people sometimes result into submitting to predatory journals? So going back to the reason earlier, because sometimes you need papers to get promoted, and I'm giving also the benefit of the doubt. Like, of course, other scientists could be naive and they do not know that these are predatory journals. But other references would say that other scientists a bit know about it, but they still submit, driven by the maxim of publish or perish. So I hope you will not be victimized by the predatory journals. So this would just be a big definition of the predatory journal. I can skip that already. We have already discussed that. And basically, what do they want? They just want, of course, the money or the article processing charge once you get accepted. As I have shared earlier, it usually take a year or more than a year for peer review before it gets accepted. But for predatory journal, within few hours of submission, you get accepted and you get happy. You think that it is a good journal, but it's not. So how pervasive is this problem? How would be like how is it in the community? So we have like predatory journals, and even now, because we are online, we have predatory conferences and predatory online meetings. I just wonder how are those like scammed to attend on conferences which are abroad or international. So even I would be, yes, you get those emails a lot, and when you open them, you feel good because they would praise you. They would say like you are good, you are eminent, and if you want to be in a good mood, try to read their email, but don't be victimized by them. So, but how pervasive is it? So you can see an example there. I'm sure you know this. This is one of the like a famous line or slide or part of Star Wars. Right, it's either the beginning, they show it. So some of the curious scientists submitted part of the Star Wars to this predatory journals, and even to journals, open access journals, which are international. During that time, several years ago, there was more than like 38% or 40% were accepted into this journal. This Star Wars part was accepted, so it is really very pervasive. And after years of happening, of course, those directory of open access journals, which are not predatory, became very strict in the submission. That's how scary it is. They say this is part of a big organization, or if you look at your neighbors, they might already be part of this organization. I am scared right now, just kidding. But they are like organizations that would scam or victimize you. So how are we affected by this? Because you wanted to publish or you want to submit your research paper, you can get flawed results and conclusion. What is very bad in health or in diagnosis, you will have wrong diagnosis and suboptimal treatment in medicine. This is not good, because this not only affects you and your credibility, but the entire community is affected. And of course, if you publish in a predatory journal, it would affect your reputation as an author, institution, and even your funding agencies. I don't know if you have heard of one big publishing agency or one big publisher right now is in an issue with another quote-unquote predatory website, saying that their publications are predatory. So they are fighting. But of course, for us to know, of course, we have to judge in terms of the editorial board, the content, and not even the article process in charge. It's very difficult to know in terms of APCs, because not all expensive publishers with APCs are predatory. So it's very difficult really to analyze. So I do not know if you have a list here, but in the Philippines, of course, we have experts, and there's a list in our Ministry of Science. It's the same. Predatory. It's very important issue. So how to detect them? Several years ago, there was this called a Bill's list of potential predatory journal and publisher. But in 2017, there was much resistance against him. He was, not pushed to death, but there were lawsuits against this Bill's list, because as mentioned earlier, these are big organizations, and they would be saying that the list is not true. But anyway, there are other lists now that you can use. Again, Professor Risti said that there are also lists in your university also, or in your ministry. So this would just be warning signs of a fake journal. The website contains false information. You have to be, for students, you have to take a look very well of the website. Sometimes it really looks very real. The name of the journal easily confused with another, like Journal of Public Health and etc. There's another Journal of the Health of the Public, etc. So they just mix around the words. No peer review process, a missing or false ownership and management, missing or false governing body, missing or unclear editorial team or contact information, missing or unclear copyright and licensing, and of course the author. Then of course, no process of identification and dealing with research misconduct. No publication ethics, as we have discussed earlier, it's very important. No publication schedule, no access, no archiving. Archive is indexing. No revenue, only would go to the publishers. It's false advertising and direct marketing to you. So as was mentioned by Professor Risti earlier, she would receive a lot of emails early in the morning. You're in a rush going to class, or you have a work and you see a lot of spam emails. Again, if you want to uphold your ego high, or you want to be happy, you can open these emails. Again, just make sure that not to reply or to be victimized by these emails. So it's usually odd salutation with typographical errors, awkward English, there's no indexing, and of course it's false praise. It's well, actually, of course, the faculty here would be experts, and you already are good, but please don't be victimized by the false praise, playing to your ego, and of course, the typographical errors. So how to avoid them? Just very quickly, of course, take a good look at their website. You verify if the journal is a member of the DOAJ, it's a Directory of Open Access Journal. COPE is Committee on Publication Ethics. OASPA is, maybe you can help me, it's Open Access Scientific Publication something. And the STM is a Science and Technology and Medicine journals. So you check the journal's contact information, of course, look up the members of the editorial board and bring a critical eye to their peer review process and publication schedule. Again, I have been mentioning this a while ago. It's very important to check if the journal is indexed in WOS or previously known as Thomson Reuters, Scopus, and the Scimago. You have to browse previous issues. Maybe you might be the first and only issue of that predatory journal. So how not to, or if you're still unsure, of course, you do not trust unsolicited emails. Review several issues of the journals, review the journal website, and of course, check that any impact metrics listed by the journal are recognized and of course, reputable. If in doubt, again, ask your faculty advisor or any expert or those experts who have already published in international peer-reviewed journals. You're still unsure, of course, this would just be neutral factors. I have mentioned this already earlier. So some of the journals do not have impact metrics, but that doesn't mean they are predatory. Not all journals would have, of course, impact factors. The geographical location, the article processing charge, I mentioned this already. It's not meaning high, it's predatory. And the reputation of other journals in terms of a publisher. So of course, good luck to you in submitting your research paper. You think first, you consult, you check, and you submit. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pai. It was an amazing presentations, and it gives a lot of insight for us how to avoid predatory journal and how to submit good paper to recommended journal, right? Jadi Bapak Ibu, mungkin saya sedikit menyimpulkan bahwa tadi sudah banyak materi mengenai tips dan trik bagaimana kita bisa submit jurnal seperti itu Bapak Ibu. Mungkin yang agak sedikit berbeda, kalau tadi Dr. Pai kita biasanya kan membuat judulnya dulu ya Bapak Ibu, tapi kalau Dr. Pai tadi menyarankan jangan, kita melakukan literatur review dulu, baru nanti kita tentukan apa judulnya, abstraknya, dan lain sebagainya. Nah, kemudian tadi juga Dr. Pai juga menekankan pentingnya citasi, itu jangan lupa, dan juga kita juga sudah diberikan tips dan trik bagaimana untuk menghindari supaya kita tidak tertipu ya. Ternyata jurnal itu adalah jurnal predator seperti itu. Nah, mungkin ada Bapak Ibu yang ingin bertanya, silahkan, masih kami buka kesempatan untuk bertanya di kolom chat. Dan tadi sudah Bu Triswa sudah bertanya dari tadi ya Bu ya. Mohon maaf mungkin baru bisa disampaikan dari sekarang. Dr. Pai, so one of our lecturer, Mrs. Triswa Augia, ask you a questions, and the question is based on your experience. Are there any chance to use microbes to metabolite or inactivate of heavy metals or antibiotics in aquatic environment?
Yes, that's a good question. You can hear me, right?
Channels.
Yeah, you can hear me, right? Okay. Yes, that's a good question. We can use, of course, microorganisms, metabolites from the microorganisms for economic, ecological, as well as health importance. I know scientists in the Philippines working on this. We still call this as natural products, or they have good, like they can be used for degrading plastic or degrading heavy metals, and even, of course, they could be used against other bacteria also, and yes, that is a good project or research questions also.
Bu Tiswa, bagaimana Bu Tiswa? Untuk Bapak Ibu, kami masih berikan kesempatan satu kali lagi untuk dapat bertanya. Bapak Ibu silahkan. Dan kami mengingatkan untuk link absensi sudah tersedia di kolom chat untuk Bapak Ibu dapat, ataupun adik-adik mahasiswa untuk dapat memperoleh sertifikat. Jadi jangan lupa mohon untuk mengisi link absensi yang sudah dikirimkan di kolom chat. Untuk pertanyaan tidak hanya terbuka untuk Bapak Ibu saja, untuk adik-adik mahasiswa silahkan, mungkin ada yang ingin bertanya kira-kira tips dan triknya seperti apa. Gitu. Karena sepertinya banyak ya yang setelah ini melakukan skripsi, mungkin silahkan. Silahkan Bapak Ibu atau adik-adik mahasiswa. Dan kami juga ingin mengingatkan bahwa besok pagi juga akan ada lagi webinar bersama Dr. Pai lagi dengan materi yang berbeda. Nanti linknya akan kami share juga kepada Bapak Ibu dan juga adik-adik mahasiswa, dan kami harapkan kehadiran Bapak Ibu dan juga adik-adik mahasiswa pada kegiatan webinar besok pagi. I think that's all. Oke. Ya, karena mungkin sudah cukup jelas ya materi dari Dr. Pai, terutama terkait yang tadi predatory journal, itu sangat menarik dan sudah diulas dengan sangat lengkap oleh Dr. Pai. Jadi mungkin kita dapat mengakhiri webinar pada pagi ini. So I would like to say thank you very much, Dr. Pai, and we'll meet again with you tomorrow in another webinar with another topics. So, atau ini masih ada yang ingin bertanya? Masih saya buka kesempatan terakhir. Adik-adik mahasiswa. Oh, Mr. Ao wants to ask a question. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Ao, before I.
Okay, good morning, Dr. Pai. My name is Ao, and I'm from Universitas Andalas, Faculty of Public Health. Well, I'm kind of share my experience first, and then I'm gonna ask after that. Okay, so in 2017, I helped my supervisor in Universitas Indonesia when I was still a student of master study program, and I helped him to publish several journals of his research in Indian journals. I will not read the brand, but it's one of the Indian journals. And unfortunately, I didn't know anything about predatory journal at that moment. So I just sent three of five of his journals to that predatory journal. Well, at first it was indexed in Scopus Q4. Yes, at first it was indexed, but after it published, after a year it published. And what is that? After a year it was published. The Scopus indexes no longer exist on this journal. So at that moment, then I realized, oh my God, this is a predatory journal. And then my supervisor asked me, is there any possibility that our published journal will be withdraw? Yeah, we can withdraw that, or maybe we can publish it in another journals. Or is that means that everything is over for that 3 journals that I have sent to the journal? Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Professor Awal, for sharing your story. It's a sad story, but anyway, we are not looking bad at you. It's not your fault. You have your advisor. You have your thesis advisor should have guided you in choosing the right journal. And but since during that time it's Scopus indexed, we understand that you submitted there, and it is not your fault, neither your advisor's fault. It is also not his or her fault for you to submit there because it's already indexed in Scopus. Remember that this indexing systems would be depending on the performance of the journal. So if they see if the journal is performing in a predatory way, they would like remove it from the list of indexing, like in Scope, in Thomson Reuters, or in the WOS indexing. So I just still feel if I am to interpret your story, at that time you are not at fault. Your advisor is also not at fault because it's also indexed, and if it's particularly also accepted by Indonesia at that time, you are also not at fault. But the sad news is you cannot anymore withdraw your paper because you already submitted and published your paper. That's why one of the reminders earlier is that you will lose your data, everything, because you have already submitted it there. So I hope that helps. And maybe it's just I don't know, learning curve. We call it like that in the Philippines. Lesson learned for you to be able, but it's the indexing is very fluid. It really depends on the performance of the publisher and the journal. So good luck, Professor.
Oke, Bapak Ibu tadi mungkin ada pembahasan yang menarik dari Pak Aul ya, pengalaman Pak Aul dulu waktu masih kuliah ya Pak Aul ya. Ternyata bantuin pembimbingnya untuk publikasi ke jurnal. Nggak tahu ternyata kalau jurnalnya itu ternyata predator seperti itu. Ternyata dinyatakan sebagai predator. Jadi tadi yang disampaikan Dr. Pai sebetulnya itu juga mungkin bukan kesalahan Pak Aul, bukan kesalahan dari pembimbing Pak Aul juga, mungkin itu juga bukan kesalahan dari kita juga ya, karena di Indonesia juga masih diterima. Tapi ya itu kerugiannya karena kita sudah submit dan publish, tentu saja papernya tidak bisa kita tarik kembali. Seperti itu. Mungkin itu ada lagi yang ingin bertanya, masih saya buka, mungkin untuk satu pertanyaan lagi. Tanya sudah, oke. Berarti mungkin lanjutkannya saya tutup untuk webinar pada pagi hingga siang hari ini. Terima kasih banyak atas partisipasi Bapak, Ibu, dan juga adik-adik mahasiswa. Sampai ketemu pada webinar besok pagi dengan topik yang berbeda. Saya akhiri, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.